Good morning. Good morning. Come on, you've had coffee, you've had something. Good morning. So, my second job out of college, I was driving to work. I got pulled over by a police officer. Didn't know why at the time, still don't know to this day. He made me sign a piece of paper, and then over the next 45 minutes, made me empty out my entire car on the side of the highway. The whole time I'm thinking that I'm there, I'm thinking about how I'm being late to this new job that I had just started a few days ago. So after he made me do that process, I put everything back in the car, I rushed to my office, I run into my boss's office, sweaty, saying, look, I'm really sorry, I got pulled over by the police, that's why I'm late. He says to me, hey, what happened? You know, I know the chief of police, do you want me to call? I said, no. He said, let me tell you something. He said, I don't care if you're green. He said, you're one of my best programmers, you're helping me grow my company, so whatever I need to do to help you, I will. So that day, I had two areas of perception. I saw how the world still saw me as a black man, and I saw how my new world saw me as an enterprising new programmer. And I like to say that in that date, I developed what I like to call technology swagger. Because after that day, I realized that as long as I was competent and skilled, that I could transcend race. And as you'll see, throughout my life and career, those kind of dual perceptions of my life have kind of been constant. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about what I call closing the opportunity divide in that perception problem. So before we start, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been involved in technology for about 23 years. I've held roles as the Chief Technology Officer of BET, Chief Technology Officer of Radio 1, started an internet company with Russell Simmons called Global Grind. We raised money from the same guy who invested in Facebook 2 weeks later. Was been on the CNN Black in America special. Literally have spent my whole life involved in technology. So I know what you guys are thinking. I wish someone had told me that I was going to see a unicorn today. I would have charged my phone. I would get my Instagram and Snapchat ready to go because I didn't know I was going to see an anomaly. And that anomaly of me being that unicorn has kind of passed me throughout my life. I've gone to conferences, 4,000 people being the only African American in the room. When I was running that venture-backed startup, they had something called CEO Day, and I looked around the room, and I was the only person of color in the room not serving food. And that day, I learned information from Mark Zuckerberg, from Steve Ballmer, from the CEO of EA, all this rich knowledge that I was the only person benefiting from of color. Now, technology has taken me everywhere. It's allowed me to meet people that I could only dream of. It's allowed me to be in experiences and places that if you know, I couldn't believe even when I was in them. But every time I was in those situations, I looked around and kind of said to myself, why is it only me? Why am I the only person? I'm not that smart. I'm okay. But I'm not that smart that I should be the only person taking advantage of these opportunities. Because on the flip side, we're losing. Unemployment rates today are still higher than they've been in a long time. Unemployment rates specifically for African Americans and Hispanics are still in the double-digit numbers. I can't go into an inner city and not meet someone who doesn't know someone in their family or closely connected to them that's unemployed. But at the same time, technology is moving faster. As this slide builds, I want you to think about how some of these technologies have impacted your life. I mean, how did we find anything before 1998? Before 2004, no one ever got poked. Imagine that. Before 2006, LOL, BRB, we didn't use those terms because Twitter didn't exist. Before 2007, we played Words by ourselves because Zynga didn't exist, so Words with Friends wasn't in existence. Now, here's a big one. 2007, the iPhone. Think about how far you can walk today without seeing those white headphones on someone walking down the street. 2009, WhatsApp was a mobile app that was bought about a year ago by Facebook for $15 billion. 2010, before that we used our mirrors to brush our teeth, comb our hair. But in 2010, they created Instagram, and the mirror became the new photo model for the entire generation. Instagram was bought a year and a half after it was created for $1 billion by Facebook. And Snapchat. If any parents in the room don't know what Snapchat is, it's the app that your kids use until you come in the room and they turn it off. Snapchat turned down a $3 billion offer from Yahoo about a year and a half ago, and now they're worth close to $20 billion. Now, these are the heavy hitters, but there are thousands of other companies that I could have put on this slide that have been created that have generated massive wealth, massive opportunity, and are changing how we see the world. To give you an analogy, the television industry took half a century to become a billion-dollar industry. It took Instagram a year and a half. Now, the other side of this opportunity is some of those same companies, these are their diversity numbers in terms of employees in their marketplace. If you look at the pie charts, the numbers get smaller if you go from men to women, women to Hispanics, Hispanics to African Americans. So you start to see this duality of opportunity. There's all these things being created, but there's only a subset of the world taking advantage of it. 1%. 1% is the number of venture-backed companies that have been started by an African American or Hispanic that have received venture funding. So if you think about that, the chasm of all the internet apps and things that you use on a daily basis, only 1% of those are run by an African American or Hispanic. When I was running my company, there was literally only one other CEO that was running a venture-backed firm in Silicon Valley of color. We'd meet often and have coffee, and we'd say we were owning the industry in that Starbucks. So opportunity. So I believe that this illustrates how the mainstream world sees opportunity today. You know, quick pulse in here. How many people own an iPhone? How many people own an Android phone? How many people own a BlackBerry? You're the one. Okay. So all of you, even the guy with the BlackBerry, see the world as this open vat of information. Think about it. Anytime you have a problem, you go on your phone, you can Google search for it, you can find it. You pretty much feel like anything is within your reach by typing in Google, how do I do X? But on the flip side, in most urban areas, this is the perception of opportunity. People are just trying to get by. People are making ends meet. They're just narrowly focused on how to get through to the next day. I contend that the challenge with that is that in a lot of cases, when you're so narrowly focused in terms of your perception, there's opportunities to the immediate left and right of you that you'll never see because all you're trying to do is get by. I also contend that if we don't change this paradigm, soon that opportunity is going to look like this. Now, that perception problem goes both ways. That was the perception of people looking out into opportunity, but there's also a perception of mainstream America looking into those groups in terms of them being a place where opportunity could be created. Here's an example. These two pictures came from a New York Times article a couple years ago that was talking about technology being introduced in a local school system. Same article. The picture of the African American children showed children in front of a computer confused, frustrated. They don't want to be anywhere near that computer. You scroll down the article, and the same article, it showed a group of mainstream white children loving technology, embracing it, connecting it. Why is this important? Because if you think about how media shapes our ideas and thoughts about how we have perspectives about a certain topic, this immediately gives you a polarizing effect that says a couple things. African Americans don't like technology. They like to use it and play with it, but they don't want to understand how to build it. They don't want to be a part of this digital economy. 2040. 2040 is the year that the census predicts that people of color will no longer be in the minority. Why should you care? You should care because if you think about the level and pace that technology is moving and the jobs that are needed to push us into the next generation, if the new majority is digitally illiterate, and not connected to those opportunities, and cannot help us fill those jobs, it's a problem for everybody. So let me tell you a story about two kind of perceptions of reality. So there was a kid who lived in this house. His father was a habitual gambler. He was basically raised by his mother, his grandmother, and his aunt. He had times where his father didn't pay the electric bill, so they'd run a power cord to the neighbor's house so they'd have lights. His house ran on oil, so his father didn't pay the oil man, so a lot of times they would all be huddled around a space heater in one room of the home. And that was his life. Now, you guys would probably say, hey, I read about this on the news all the time. People in the inner city, disconnected, not having access to opportunity. That's a shame. But the flip side of this is that that same little boy never spent a day in public school, got his first computer at the age of 7. And if you had told that cute, adorable, yet ashy, and if you don't know what ashy is, Google it, little boy, that he would have done any of the things that you saw in the first initial slides, he wouldn't have believed you. But the difference is he had a structure in his life where people saw a bigger perception of opportunity than he saw. Because at a very young age, they bought him a Commodore 64 computer. Now, no one in his house was really technical or understood the value of it, but they understood that they wanted to put that in that little boy's hand so that he could see different things. And that little boy started to play with it and didn't understand the value of it, but really saw that he enjoyed it. Later on in life, that same little boy was able to go to a small private school in New Hope, Pennsylvania. He was introduced to a man named Bruce Allen who showed him how to create what was the equivalent of a screensaver on an Apple IIc computer. Now, this dashing young teen came here primarily to play basketball. But at the same time, he understood a bigger world. He understood the importance of learning, and he understood that he had more talents than he recognized. Now, if you haven't realized by now, this dashing young man was me about 4 years ago. The other thing you may not realize is that picture was actually taken in this room when this room used to be a gymnasium. It was actually taken on that wall. So if I sporadically turn around and try to shoot a jump shot, it's because old habits die hard. But again, all that started from taking that little boy and widening his perception of opportunity. So I was part of a CNN documentary a few years back. It was on television. I started to get a lot of emails, a lot of calls. I got 2 types of calls. I got calls from people who said, hey, we want to pay you an honorarium to come speak. But I got another type of call. I got calls from people who said, hey, we've never seen anybody like you. An African American who's had a successful career in technology, who's done some pretty interesting, amazing things. Will you come talk to us? But we can't even pay your train fare. So I started to take a lot of those. And what I realized was that what was missing in the world was relevant outreach in terms of letting people know about this digital opportunity. So I started an initiative called the Close the Divide Project, which was really me traveling across the country, giving people relevant outreach. I started partnering with organizations, and it really took a life of its own. And I want to give you an example. So this picture is from the Urban Apps and Maps program in Philadelphia that brings inner city kids in over the summer and teaches them how to build apps, and then says, hey, point those ideas toward civic-minded changes in your community. So 2 ideas came out of the batch. One was called Gotcha, which was a mobile app that if someone was shoplifting in a store, they'd take a picture on their phone, and that picture would immediately get spread throughout the entire mall to everyone's mobile device, so everyone knew who that shoplifter was. The other one was an app built on top of Google Maps that told you in any given city where the best restaurants and bodegas were, where the food trucks were at any given day and what their menus are, and what areas you should not go into at certain times of the day. Now, shrinkage, which is the term for theft in retail, is a multi-billion-dollar problem. So Gotcha was thought of by 5 kids from South Philly who had never touched a computer before they touched the program. So 3 months after they went to that program, they came up with an idea that would solve a multi-billion-dollar problem. Environmental constraints. So I believe environmental constraints limit people's perception. And what I mean by that is, if I'm in an environment where there's no one around me who understands what I'm trying to learn, there's no history or lineage of people around me who understand the value of something, then even if I have an interest in it, the environment kind of constricts around me and I start to lose interest. Let me give you an example. So these are 5 kids from a Fast Company article called The App Apprentices. They all built apps in their spare time, and they all made a minimum of $50,000 in revenue from their app. Some of the responses were, it was cool to do, it was exciting to see someone buy my app, hey, I might build another one. So I also ask you, these are 3 young men in the Philadelphia area getting arrested. I ask you, what's the difference between these 3 young men and the 5 I showed you on the earlier slide? I would contend nothing. The difference is that whatever they did to get into this situation, at their mind and their perception, was the best opportunity they had in front of them right now. I'd also argue with you that if they were in an environment that allowed them to understand the value of learning and the value of creativity that those other 5 young men were in, we'd see similar things. 2 quick stories. I knew a guy who could take the top off of a bottle cap, scratch it on the curve, and we'd make free phone calls every time. I knew another guy who, when cable came out, he opened the box, he twisted some wires, and we had every free channel. Now, I'm a good Christian boy, so I went home. But my friends stayed and watched hours and hours of free cable. I can't tell you where either of those guys are today. In the technology world, they're called hackers, they're called visionaries, there's people who think different. Those are 2 examples of people who had that thinking different idea but weren't connected to opportunity. How many people in here have ever doodled anything on a napkin? Idea just keeps nagging at you, keeps staying in your head. Well, I'm here to tell you that same process created Facebook, created Google, created literally every technology achievement you had, that somebody had something nagging in their mind. Now, the flip side of that, imagine in many urban areas, there's kids just like that doodling on napkins. The difference is those napkins are going in the trash because no one's ever told them that there's tools out there that allow them to create something from what they're thinking of. So what we need to do is we need to create more visual examples of success in different areas. It's no secret why so many people want to be entertainers and athletes. It's because that's all they see. There's no secret to why I got those calls, because there were so few of me out there that when they saw something different, they were attracted to it. Because I contend no one wants to be unsuccessful. Everyone sees something and wants to grasp towards opportunity, because if they're surrounded by an environment that doesn't allow them to see that, they're limited. This is a picture of the founder of WhatsApp signing his $15 billion Facebook deal on the door of the welfare office where he used to collect food stamps. I'm going to let that marinate for 2 seconds. $15 billion on the door of the welfare office where he collected food stamps. Imagine if more of the people who were in line with him were able to have access to the same vision of opportunity that he did. Imagine if the thousands of kids you see on the streets in Baltimore, the thousands of kids you see on the street in Ferguson, were able to see that there was more to life than what was in front of them. Imagine if we could change the perception in this digital age for everyone to see that there's a blessing inside of them to create something different. Imagine the companies we'd have, the ideas that would be there, the problems that would be solved. So I travel the country trying to create what I call light bulb moments. And I've seen them happen. I've seen kids and adults come to me and say, hey, I never thought of it that way. And the reason why I create those light bulb moments is because I actually believe once that light bulb goes off, you can never go back. Your perception's always been widened. So I'm going to continue to travel the world to make these light bulb moments happen, and I hope we've created a few here today. Thank you.